Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Presley, and in this video today, I will be reviewing Know Your Station. Now, this is a trade paperback published by Boom Studios back in 2023. The writer is Sarah Gailey, who wrote Eat the Rich, which I really enjoyed. Definitely go check that video out. And the artwork in here is by Liana Congas. I hope I'm saying that correctly, with colors by Rebecca Nalty. And I just got to say right off the bat, I really dug Eat the Rich. I was not the biggest fan of Know Your Station. This is basically a story about a ship called the First Resort who is fleeing Earth due to the rise in climate change. And it's basically owned by all these huge billionaires who also own all these companies and control most of the income on Earth. And it's kind of like Eat the Rich in terms of destroying billionaires, destroying wealth, and the common folk rising up against them. It's an interesting concept, but it kind of just feels like Eat the Rich a little bit, though a little bit worse. And I would say right off the bat, the flow of the story is a little bit wonky. The first 4 issues, because this is a 5-issue book, the first 4 issues are very slow. We're kind of asking and the same thing and seeing the same things over and over again. It's all these billionaires being butchered and murdered in meticulous ways, very artistic and precise ways. And then the 5th issue comes along and we're kind of bombarded right in the face with the whole twist about who's actually doing all this. And I don't know, something about the pacing. I feel like Eat the Rich also had a little bit of a pacing problem, but this especially, I think we just meander way too much and then we end way too abruptly. And I think that makes for a little bit of an unpleasant read at times. The main character is Elise, and she is the security liaison. So she's the one that's kind of in charge of making sure everybody's okay, taking care of their needs on the ship, and investigating anything. A cop ends up coming to help her investigate what's going on, but Elise has very much made it clear that she is not a cop. She's not good at investigating. She's not good at doing detective work. And so when all these murders start taking place, she's very helpless, and we're helpless with her because we have no idea who's doing this and what's going on either. And while that typically is a nice story structure, I like when we kind of experience a story with the characters. It was a bit frustrating because we're constantly asking the same questions over and over again, like who would do this? What's going on? Why are they doing this? Who's behind all of it? And it just gets infuriating at times. Overall, once the twist comes in at the very end, it doesn't feel super satisfying because it was a little predictable, but also it was a little bit of a letdown. I thought it was going to be more interesting than it was. Not to say that it was horrible, and the very end of the book was cool in terms of like that person gaining closure with, who it was. But overall, it just was kind of okay. Now I want to talk about the artwork because I think the artwork doesn't do anything too bad here. It's very basic in my opinion, and I didn't love it. I didn't dislike it. Again, I didn't think it was bad, and I wasn't like grossed out or anything looking at it, because there is some artwork that I have seen before that really just turns you off to reading the book. Again, I didn't think that here. I thought it served the story decently well. I just didn't think it did anything to blow my expectations out of the water. I didn't want to keep reading specifically because of the artwork, but overall it was solid. I'm going to put panels on screen if I haven't already while I'm talking about it. But one thing that was a little bit weird, specifically about the coloring in this book, is the skin shaders that the colorists used tended to be very inconsistent. There were some scenes where the skin tones for the characters were much lighter, much brighter, and then in the same lighting scenes, they would be darker and full of shadow. It was very weird looking how inconsistent some of the character designs and colors were throughout. So overall, I did like some of the common areas of the spaceship. I thought it looked decently cool, but the character work specifically didn't do anything to stand out to me. Another thing about this book that I thought was pretty cool was making the narrator unreliable. The main character, Elise, is a drug addict, and so she's never in a clear state of mind, and therefore the story that's happening around her, a lot of it we can't even tell if it's real or fake. I do like that aspect. I thought it was really interesting. I like unreliable narrators. I think it makes for a fun and interesting story. So even though the actual flow of the story was a little bit boring at times, I think her being confused because she's never having a clear conscience, I think is a fun way to make the story, and I think that was one of my favorite parts of the entire book. Now, I don't want to spoil what actually happens, who ends up being the killer, what goes on, and how it's all resolved at the very end, but I will say Know Your Station does wrap up decently nicely at the end. It is way too quickly, but I do think the 5th issue is probably the best issue in the entire book. I think you should read this book if you're interested in maybe mystery thrillers, but I don't think this is a necessity, and I think Eat the Rich is much better. I'm giving this book a 3 stars out of 5. I didn't despise it, but I thought it was just okay. If you've already read Know Your Station, let me know in the comments down below your thoughts, your opinions, and most importantly, your rating for the book. Again, I gave it a 3 stars out of 5. And with that being said, thank you so very much for watching this review. Please make sure to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you later.